What's up, guys? Welcome to Breaking Down the Bees, where we have a look at pretty much anything that's not the UFC. If we can bet it, it's worthwhile. Let's have a look-see. Bellator, PFL, pretty much the ones that we're looking for. I mean, again, notable fighters. And as long as we can get a decent line on them, I mean, we're always willing to have a look. So Rory McDonald versus Tibau. We're kicking off the PFL 2021, number 5, regular season. I know these names are convoluted, but again, the fights are pretty good. And aside from that, generally, when you watch UFC tape, a lot of the times it's like, oh man, this guy hasn't fought in a couple of years. Oh man, this guy hasn't been on a layoff for 10 months. At least with PFL, for the most part, a lot of these guys fought six weeks ago. It's a regular season. There's a routine. There's a schedule. On one hand, it's good because you can get a better vibe on the guys, like how they look not so long ago. They're probably not going to change their fundamental skill set from time to time. On the other hand, some of these guys take a lot of damage and then they have to make a quick turnaround. So they're not quite as good, as explosive, as durable, as, cardio is not quite there because there are some lingering injuries we just don't know about. So kicking things off, we've got Rory McDonald taking on Tibau. Again, from a betting perspective, there's not much meat on the bone at this point. It's a 9-1 favorite, minus 900 Rory McDonald, and deservedly so, right? The problem with Rory is that he's proven to be a bit of a 50-50 fighter in regards that half the time he shows up and half the time he just quite honestly doesn't. The thing here, though, is even if Rory takes a night off, does not show up, he still probably wins. Again, when you look at his record, the guys that have beaten him, nobody's submitting him. So Tibau with a quick little guillotine choke, maybe able to get this fight to the ground and snag up a neck in transitions. MMA, we've seen crazier things happen. Probably not the most likely outcome. Rory's a guy, BJJ black belt. He's trained at a high level for a very long time, whether it be at TriStar MMA, whether it be at Sanford MMA, which he's currently at. It just seems like he's going to have a lot of these submission attempts snuffed out from a lot of opponents. Again, here's a guy that's been fighting professionally since he's 16 years old, never been submitted. The guys that have had success with beating Rory, you have to put pressure on him. If you can take him down, great, but you have to put pressure on him. Get in his face, make it an ugly fight, hit him and hurt him. Now, Tibau's got the right mentality. He's got on record prior to this fight starting saying, I'm going to make this a street fight. I'm going to take the fight to him and I'm going to bring it to him. And again, that's the right mentality and probably the right game plan considering what else does Tibau bring to the table at this stage. I just don't think it's enough. Like, he's too short. Him trying to close that gap to make this a firefight, he's just going to walk into the jab over and over. And it's almost funny. He says, I'm going to make this a street fight. Yet his last fight 6 weeks ago against Joao Zeferino, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Zeferino's short notice. He's replacing Kanchenko, who again, we'll talk about a little bit later. It's just like it's a short notice replacement comes in for Tibau. He's the only one here that's got the full camp in that spot against Zeferino, and yet there's no output. Like, he just doesn't quite do anything. It's been a long time since he's fought an elite level in the UFC. He did get a pretty nice little win over Will Brooks over in Korea, a fight he never got paid for, but got a guillotine choke. But the biggest thing is that prior to that last fight with Zeferino, people were like, oh, you haven't fought in a while since the Will Brooks fight. And he claims that he won an 8-man one-night tournament. Fought a couple times over, I think he said it was in Germany. And then they filmed a rap video all around this one-night tournament. So you can watch the rap video and you can see the footage and it don't look like a real fight to me. So why he would claim he won this tournament, why he would claim it's legit, why he would claim all that, I don't know. But again, it's all about reputation so that he can get into this tournament so that you have a shot at winning $1 million. Crazier things have happened than Tibau beating Rory McDonald for sure. But yeah, I'm really not buying into it, especially after that last performance against Zeferino. Again, with Rory McDonald, the issue is that he's that 50-50 guy. He shows up half the time. He doesn't show up half the time. But the guys he's not showing up to is a version of Douglas Lima that looked a lot better than the last one we saw, last week on Bellator. Gegard Mousasi, again, he's up at 185 pounds against one of the baddest motherfuckers to ever do it. The John Fitch fight, that definitely left something to be desired, but it's pressure and it's wrestling. And I just don't know that Gleison's going to bring that to the table. So I know the running joke is Gleison's the only guy to beat Khabib, but think about it, man. Those days are long gone. He's not the guy he used to be. And, he pulls up short on a lot of his punches. He doesn't throw a ton of them. His wrestling's not quite there anymore. At best, he grinds him up against the cage, but Rory's such a bigger body that he's just going to reverse. So, again, if you got it at opener, let me just check what the opener was. It was still a big opener, but Rory is minus 600. Again, very fair. At this point, he's minus 900. He'll probably be over 1,000 once fight time actually comes. But I don't think we're disagreeing with that. If your book happens to offer props, Rory is coming off a first-round finish, but again, Rory's not really much of a finisher. He's like that methodical approach. Take his time, use the jab, stick it out there. He's not really looking to rush things. The takedown against Curtis Millender, perfect. How does anybody beat Curtis Millender? And again, we're going to have to talk about that. That's the other thing about PFL. It seems repetitive because they're all fighting all the time. But again, it's easier to analyze. But when you look at how does Rory beat Millender, same way as everybody is. Get the fight. Once the fight is on the ground, he gets the submission. But against Tibau, you going to try to take him down? You going to try to submit him? You going to ground and pound him? Like, guy's pretty durable. So again, I think Rory probably does win this thing by decision. At the very least, we can hit the over 1.5, the over 2.5. Fight goes the distance. If Gleison sprung a wild upset, you would think it would be inside the distance. I don't see him beating Rory for 2 of the 3 rounds, but again, if we're trying to improve that 9-1 price tag on Rory's going to be parlay material, don't get me wrong. But if we're trying to bet a straight up play on that fight, I think you take the Rory by decision over that Rory inside the distance. Moving on to the co-main event, we got a good one here. We got Ray Cooper versus Nikolai Lexicon. Again, this is a fight closely lined, I suppose. Lexicon's currently minus 145 against a slight underdog status for Ray Cooper, and it really all depends on the version of Ray Cooper that shows up, because Ray Cooper, known as a brawler, right? Well, I think the very first thing that would come to your mind is this guy, very heavy-handed, likes to brawl in the pocket, striking not exactly the most technical, doesn't have a great jab. At 5'7", he's not a guy with a big long reach on him, but he rips to the body, he rips to the head, he generates a lot of power. That is what we think of him. But in the last number of fights now, he's relying on his newfound wrestling and jiu-jitsu game. And to be honest, it's actually working pretty good for him. But it just depends what kind of shape he shows up in. At his best, when he first signed with PFL, he knocks out Jake Shields a couple times. He beats Pavel Kush. He avenges that fight with Henderson Ferreira, which he had previously lost on the regional scene. He's looking good, but wrestling is the way to take this guy. The Magomed Karimov fight, again, he just takes him down, grinds him, gets the guillotine choke. John Howard catches him. Sadi Busai, he wins the first round over Sai, loses the second round according to 2 of the 3 judges, and it's only a 2-round fight. So the way PFL works is whoever wins the first round advances, but the fight's ruled a draw. So, he gets a draw against Sadi Busai, advances that same night, and knocks out Chris Curtis. Like, what? Who knocks out Chris Curtis? Nobody. And in fact, that first round, he goes out there, takes down Curtis, wins the first round, and in the second round, like 11 seconds in, just dynamite in this guy's hands, knocks out Chris Curtis. So it's weird. The Sadi Busai fight, he looks a little bit tired. His takedowns aren't working at all bite-sized, very tall guys. Compared to the 5'7" for Ray Cooper, you got a guy over 6 feet inside of Busai. Maybe that's what he was struggling with, but he didn't look good. And then that same night comes out and beats Chris Curtis. Pretty crazy. That sets him up for the $1 million fight against David Michaud of all people. Talk about winning $1 million to fight a guy. Michaud, not a bad opponent, but I don't think the kind of guy that you would win $1 million for beating. And again, he looks good in that fight as well. But Michaud's a wrestler, and yeah, once Ray gets in there and clinches up with you, he is physically strong. He is able to muscle guys around. And where you see him inside, he's a little bit tired. And you see him sometimes, he's struggling to get the fight to the ground. He had the Chris Curtis fight's a one-night tournament, sure. So the Michaud fight, he actually gets a camp, and he knows it's 5 rounds, and it's for $1 million. And he shows up in tremendously good shape. Now, keep this in mind. Even though he's got that reputation as a brawler, he does have power in his hand. He's working on his wrestling, but he's still only like 26 years old. So you just make $1 million, and now everybody on the roster sits for a year. Pandemic happens. PFL runs no shows. Everyone's got an exclusive contract. Plus, this dude just won $1 million fighting David Michaud. You think he wants to sign anyone else? No. But he reinvests that money in himself. He's probably one of the few guys that doesn't have to pick up side work. They gave everybody like $1,000 a month, like not enough to really survive. But that's the stimulus check, right? A lot of guys were getting $1,000 a month, so it's survivable. But what I'm saying is, in his case, he had money, so I know he's been able to train. And again, he's still young. He's making improvements. So that last fight against Jason Pone, listen, if you know Pone, French Muay Thai fighter out of Thailand, take him down. He's a fish out of water. Cooper was going to do that to him. It's whether or not that wrestling is going to be good enough, because he's not a wrestler by trade. But if that wrestling is good enough to take down Nikolai Lexicon, then Ray Cooper is live for a live underdog shot. Lexicon's on a crazy good winning streak right now. And beyond that, talk about a physique on a guy. Like, my God, he's more shredded than almost anybody. Like, he shows up to weigh-ins and he's a physical force. But if we do want to break down, a long time ago, how to defeat this man, you look at the Ben Askren fight, you look at the Saigit Izagakmeyev fight. Both of them have a lot of success taking him down. Ben Askren, you give him a pass because he's Ben Askren. He was known as a wrestling powerhouse. But once he gets him to the ground, it's just like full domination and full control. And the Saigit fight is the exact same thing. He's a big guy, but he forces a Lexicon back against the cage. He's got a nice little double leg. And once he takes him down, he's a fish out of water. Not a fish out of water. Lexicon is able to work his way back up. But when you got this big, large guy stuck to you, and his willingness here is to wrestle, it's going to be a long night. That's exactly what happens to a Lexicon. Since then, Wrestling defense has not been an issue, although there is the argument that he hasn't been fighting wrestlers, or the wrestlers that he has fought, weren't forcing the issue. So of his 7-fight winning streak, Mike Graves, UFC veteran, Ultimate Fighter guy, can wrestle, but barely attempted in that fight. Decided to stand for the better part of 2 rounds, and then once he started getting tired, hurt, and desperate, that's when he started shooting. By that point, it was a foregone conclusion. He ended up getting TK'd out in the 3rd round. Dominique Steele, theoretically, big explosive guy. He could get a hold of you. He could muscle you to the ground, but he never attempted until he was KO'd, and then it was a desperation shot. But again, by that point, it's all over for you. Jonathan Webb, BJJ black belt, Renzo Gracie Philly guy. No wrestling, and again, it's a lot of guard pulling, but he comes nowhere near a Lexicon. And then a Lexicon's fights in PFL, he knocks out Jesse Ronson from Canada, who is currently signed to the UFC. He's sitting at a 2-year suspension due to a positive test, but all the same, UFC veteran, guy that's coming off a big win, not a bad level opponent, and not a whole lot of guys go out there and knock out Jesse Ronson. But again, Lexicon's dangerous, man. You stand in front of him, he's got big power. The power translates for all 3 rounds. He actually ends up knocking out Jesse Ronson with the knee up the middle. But it's like, a diverse, tough guy. And then he gets a Sadibou fight. So Sadibou Sai is a difficult opponent to deal with because, again, he's so big and he's so lengthy and he's so rangy. Lexicon goes out there. The first round's tentative. He does win. It's not like it's a clear blowaway round, but he definitely does win the round. And then in the second round, again, not a whole lot's happening. And then he eye pokes Sadibou. Sadibou can't continue. Ruled a no contest. Did he look bad in that fight? No, it didn't look bad. Did he look good in that fight? Also, not particularly, but again, Sai's a bit of a strange opponent, so maybe he was just having trouble dealing with the distance in the early portion, and then the fight really ended before it got going. The thing, though, is that Sadibou was not going to take him down. Jesse Ronson was not going to take him down. Jonathan Webb was not going to take him down. None of these guys figured to potentially take him down, and where it sounds crazy to think Ray Cooper is going to take him down, if you watch Ray's fights, man, all he does now, he strikes for like 30, 40 seconds at a time, and then he shoots in on the takedown, and he keeps at it. And it all comes down to, does he have 15 minutes of shooting, or will he get tired from a first round of desperately trying to drag this thing to the ground, get tired, and then the Lexicon's going to piece him off. So I would give power to Ray Cooper, but the striking precision, the accuracy, that's all going to go towards a Lexicon. Distance management, a Lexicon. To me, it really comes down to the clinch. I think Ray Cooper is going to have success in the clinch, but then he comes in today and misses weight, 171 3/4 pounds. So he misses weight by 3/4 of a pound. He gave up 20% of his show money. And if he wins, his win money too. I think it's just your show money. Regardless, you're giving up 20% over 3/4 of a pound. So what does that tell you? That tells you he had a bad weight cut. And my entire vision of him winning this fight is reliant on the fact that he's got 10 minutes of gas at least, and that he can chain wrestle for the better part of those 10 minutes in order to get this fight to the ground, or at the very least, up against the cage in a clinch position. So the weight cut now sets off a red flag that causes you to maybe not really overly want to chase Ray Cooper. But I don't know how much investment I would want in a Lexicon either. Talented, could beat a lot of these guys, but I haven't quite seen him go up against that wrestling powerhouse yet. And again, Cooper's not, I wouldn't consider him a wrestling powerhouse, but he's been having success against some decent guys, and he could theoretically spring one. The weight cut, though, that to me is thrown me off. So I think I would ever so slightly lean back a Lexicon. Millender Sordi versus Dan Spahn. This should be a walk out of park 9 out of 10 times. The one time it's not a walk in the park comes down to, again, it's you fight not that far apart, and damage is going to carry over. So when you look at both of the respective matchups, Sordi wins his fight, and you've got Dan Spahn who loses his fight. But certainly for a quality of life standpoint, Dan Spahn comes out in much better shape than Emiliano Sordi. Sordi had, so to speak, we're going to say, a layup opponent in Chris Camozzi. I say that not because Chris Camozzi is a bum or a layup opponent in general, but Sordi won $1 million in the PFL tournament. He's a millionaire at this point. He's one of their former champions. And since moving up to 205 pounds, just looked like a completely reinvented guy. At one point, yes, for the Bellator roster, he was just okay at best. He tries out on Dana White's Contender Series. He loses in 26 seconds. He signs a PFL, and Bazagi Atayev knocks him out his second fight for the promotion. Like, things were not looking particularly good for this guy. But man, Alliance MMA and just keeps getting better and better and better and making improvements. So beating Bazagi in the rematch, knocking out Vinny Magalhaes, beating Bazagi in the trilogy match, finished him in both the rematch and the trilogy, beating Jordan Johnson, who was actually undefeated under the UFC roster before willingly leaving on his own free will. it's like that's a much better body of work than Chris Camozzi, who's been fighting professionally as a kickboxer and is a natural middleweight and is 37 years old. Like, what's he going to possibly present to you? First round, I mean, yeah, I mean, we're looking good here. Sordi goes out there, he's landing the better strikes, he gets the takedown, he mounts him. It's like, this is no problem. The second round, he starts to tire. Now, all of a sudden, Chris Camozzi is landing on him. Leg kicks are working, right hand's working, and Sordi's face is getting bust up, man. His eyes are swelling. He's got massive bruising all over his forehead. He loses a second round to Chris Camozzi, and now we're in a 1-1 going into the third. I mean, anybody who's betting this card is on Sordi, so we collectively all need Sordi. But you know something? In the third round of a 1-1 where he seemed tired and potentially a little bit hurt, was not looking good, he dug right to the well. He went right to the wrestling in that third round, got the fight exactly where he wanted, and dominated the third round from top. That's exactly what he needed. Did it take him a little bit long to get going? Yeah. Did he take a little too much damage for my liking? Yeah. But good to see a guy pull through to the other side, considering in his Bellator days, he was a little he was known as a little bit fragile. Like, this was a good gut check. The issue is Chris Camozzi inflicted a decent amount of damage on him over the course of 15 minutes, and now you have a relatively quick turnaround, like 5 weeks or something, to this Dan Spahn fight. Dan Spahn got absolutely dominated by Martin Hamlet Nielsen, taken down at will, but he didn't get smashed up on the ground. He got taken down and he got dominated. In the second round, again, he gets taken down, and dude, it's an arm triangle from guard. Like Hamlet Nielsen doesn't even pass guard. He just sits in his guard, slaps that thing on, and boy, oh boy, when you see the pythons on this guy, oh man, I can only imagine that squeeze is probably next level, because Hamlet Nielsen, he's jacked. Strong guy. Clearly, he submits, or he doesn't even submit him. He chokes him unconscious from guard, from an arm triangle. So embarrassing for Dan Spahn. But at no point did he really take any damage. So coming into this fight, he's going to be the fresher guy between the two. My thing is with Dan Spahn, same reason I had Nielsen Hamlet, because Nielsen Hamlet was like an even money play. He was actually, he was minus 130. He was a slight favorite. But this is why I faded him there, and this is why I'll fade him again. He can't wrestle. Dan Spahn's got a big issue with wrestling. So you look at that Nielsen fight, yeah, sure, but he's a solid wrestler. But Bazagit Ataev drops him, takes him out on the ground. Sean O'Connell grinds him up, gets him on the ground. Those are all really bad looks for a 37-year-old Dan Spahn. But I go back to this fight I watched in Alberta. It's 2016. So you can say on one hand, hey, that's a long time ago. But he fought Ronnie Wallace in Alberta. 5 rounds, Hard Knocks title. He loses all 5 rounds. And he can't stuff a takedown to save his life, nor can he get back up once he does stuff the takedown. Crazy, I know, because he's from Ohio. So you would think that anybody from Ohio just naturally knows how to wrestle. And it's possible that he does. But at 6'4", his center of gravity is just not quite there. He's got kind of pencil-thin legs on him, and guys take advantage. And so Emiliano Sordi has a bit of a reputation, again, as a banger, but he can wrestle. He can wrestle pretty solid. He's been using his ground game a lot more. When you look at the fact that he lost to Bazagit Ataev the first time, it's because he stood with him. The second and third time, it's like, I'm not going to play that game anymore. Take him down, dominate him. He summons him with a rear naked choke the third fight. It's like, that's what you got to do. And in the Camozzi fight, where he's starting to get touched up and hurt a little bit standing, he goes to the well in the third and has his easiest round with the takedown. So now you're taking a guy in Dan Spahn, where you know the path to victory, everybody does it, is to take the guy down. He doesn't have great takedown defense. And I just got shit kicked against Camozzi. Won the fight, but took way too much damage. Don't you think I deserve to take this one off and maybe just ground him a couple times, win a decision? You don't owe anybody anything. You don't got to bang it out with this guy. He could bang it out with him and still knock him out. But let's take the easy path. Let's take the path of least resistance, Sordi. And that would be scoring that takedown and just grinding him from top position. So again, that's kind of how I feel the most likely outcome is to go. Looking at the line side of things, we got a minus 360 on Sordi. It's warranted. We need him to fight the proper game plan, but I think he gets the job done. Spahn does have maybe some underrated power because he is a big 205 or 6'4", 205-pound guy. He has caught some guys in the past, but I'm not playing the puncher's chance game here. I'm playing the more likely scenario, which is wrestling favors Sordi, pressure favors Sordi, experience favors Sordi. Sordi's on a really solid winning streak and has all the confidence in the world behind him. Dan Spahn's 37, 3-fight losing streak, and is a notch away from retirement. So you gotta look at certain spots. And we got next fight on the card. I believe it's the Cesar Ferreira fight. Sorry, just gotta load this up here. Yeah, we got Cesar Ferreira versus Chris Camozzi. So again, Cesar Ferreira is the tale of two guys. When he came to the UFC initially, it was like lights out power, athletic. He's touted as Vitor Belfort's prodigy. trains right alongside him. You see the guy and how he's cut up physically. It's like, looks like Vitor's prodigy to me. And he fights like a poor man's version. Quick hand speed, likes to get in your face. One thing though is he does not move his head. And that catches up with him fairly quickly at the UFC level. CB Dalloway, infamous for Brazil, just literally fades away the big right hand and then Cole cocks him with the two-piece, knocks him out. Bad look. Sam Alvey, he catches him. Big power guy, knocks him out. The Jorge Masvidal fight, people were actually giving Cesar Ferreira a chance because it was Masvidal moving up from 55 to 170 for the first time, but it didn't matter. They clinched up. Masvidal hits him one time. He topples over. Now you're knocked out 3 times in the first round. He effectively has no more chin. Durability's gone. It does not look like he can take it. He changes his entire game plan from striking with guys to just using his BJJ black belt. Because again, just like Vitor, he does sneaky have some grappling. He just chooses not to use it because he's entertaining and the fans like it. I'm knocking guys out. But he's cognizant enough to realize I'm not going to be able to do this forever. So he switches to using that muscular physique and explosiveness to not get in their face and strike to take them down. And it works for him, man. He springs a second life to him. He wins his next, goes 5-1 in the UFC with a weird decision over Elias Theodorou in the mix. Even goes the decision with Marvin Vettori and Ian Heinisch. Chin's not an issue in those fights. But again, he's not really looking to stand and bang with them. Then he draws Nick Roerich in his PFL debut. And again, I think he's just going to go out there, take him down, and use his submissions. But he shows you he still can strike. He's choosing not to strike, but he's got some dynamite in his hands. And the whole sequence, it's like it's a little cringy because one counter punch probably would floor Cesar Ferreira. Like his hands are relatively low the entire time. His head's right on the center line. But he is just gunning him with such big shots that Roerich's got nowhere to go. Nor is he a good opponent. So he's got nowhere to go and he crumples over. Fair enough. How does he match up with Chris Camozzi? Again, he's got the grappling advantage over Chris Camozzi. He's got better wrestling. He's got better overall grappling, especially from the top position. As far as the stand-up goes, he's got faster hands than Camozzi. And I would say he's got a little more power than Camozzi. The difference is Camozzi is durable. He's a guy that can go out there, can get beat up for 15 minutes, and come through on the other side. He's been kickboxing against some elite level guys. If you're going to have to go 3 rounds with him, he becomes live at some point. Again, even his last fight, he's taking on $1 million champion in Sordi, and he wins the second round. Gives a good account of himself. He's a guy that you don't want to play with your food. And so the one issue with Cesar Ferreira is that he tries to get you out of there as quick as humanly possible. If he doesn't take you out there as quick as humanly possible, he starts to fatigue. All of a sudden, his explosiveness leaves him. His takedowns aren't quite as good. And he starts to become vulnerable for the punch. And as soon as you start touching this guy up and hitting him, that's when he crumples over. So I would say of this card, we're rolling with quite a few favorites at this point, and it's a -320 on Cesar Ferreira. And I am going to take Cesar Ferreira. I just want to make the mental note as far as when we're going to build up parlays, because we're going to have to parlay this card. There's too many big favorites. Is that I don't think I want Cesar Ferreira way at the top because he could get caught here from Camozzi if Camozzi just hangs around a little too long. The reason why I'm not going to pull that trigger on Camozzi, though, is, again, Camozzi's not the biggest guy, and when you see him against Sordi, Sordi's not really a wrestler himself. So when he takes him down, he mounts him in the first round. He takes him down in the first round, has his way with him, gets on top. The second round, he chooses not to shoot the takedown. He chooses to engage with him and loses the round. In the third, he just makes that decision okay, I need to take this back to the ground. And when he does it, again, it's money in the bank. Camozzi's got nowhere to go. So Cesar Ferreira, again, a guy that has some decent ring IQ because he knows fight to the best of my abilities. I don't want to get knocked out anymore. How can I, fight this fight with taking the least amount of damage and sometimes not a whole lot of risk, but to get the job done. And that would be to take down Chris Camozzi. So I think he does that. He's still fast enough. I think he dances around on the outside a little bit, get Chris Camozzi to get a little bit anxious and get a little bit over aggressive, come forward with maybe a punch combination, at least let his hands go a little bit, and then duck under, get this guy to the ground. Once he does get to the ground, you'll be able to control him. Don't overexert yourself in that first round, because if we don't get finished, we're going to need to do it again in the second. But if we can get it in the first two, all he's got to do is run away in the third. Still could get knocked out, don't get me wrong, but I almost feel like it'll play towards him. The 320 has me a little bugged out. If I hadn't seen Camozzi versus Sordi, I might be like, oh yeah, I agree with that. But again, he is a durable guy. He's always had durability, and he's fought in some good guys. At this point, Cesar Ferreira is not a prime version of himself, but he's in great shape. I don't know if the athletic commission, got him to piss into a cup or not, but he looked fantastic at the weigh-ins. And if that Nick Roerich fight is any indication of the kind of shape he's in, yeah, very good shape. But hitting Camozzi with a 5-piece combination in the beginning of the fight, knocking him out, going to be a little bit difficult. So, we'll see how that one plays out. Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Vinny Magalhaes. This one should be a walk in the park in that both guys would probably consider them primary grapplers. The difference is that Vinny has no durability, has just like a lifelong list of massive injuries that have occurred, and is 37 years old at this point, doesn't really seem to be a factor at high-level MMA. And Antonio Carlos Jr., laugh at him all you want from maybe the way that his UFC stint ended, but like this guy's a problem for a lot of people on planet Earth at this weight class. He's very large, right? I mean, he's got 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. Has he figured out how to use that reach? No. Is he a good striker? No. Is his wrestling good? Nah, it's all right. But at American Top Team, his level of BJJ, that size, that reach, once he starts to put it all together again, he's going to be a problem for a lot of guys. Now, we can laugh at the fact that he's losing fights in the UFC, but the losses are to Ian Heinisch, credible opponent, split decision over Uriah Hall, a very credible opponent, and a close competitive fight. And they lose to Brad Tavares, who, again, is a pretty credible opponent. So losing to those guys doesn't, you fight Tom Lawler in your PFL debut. Hold up. I just fought Ian Heinisch, Uriah Hall, and Brad Tavares to competitive decisions. He wins rounds universally against almost anybody. He's got wins in the UFC over Marvin Vettori, who just fought for a world title last weekend. He got a flying triangle submission over Gary Tonon, one of the greatest submission grapplers of all time. Tonon's a 55er, and this dude's a light heavyweight, middleweight kind of guy. So don't get me wrong, and not like I'm saying it's the end all be all, but like he's got good grappling, he's got good durability. Cardio's not very good, striking's not very good, but when he puts it all together, eventually. It's going to all come eventually. And the other thing is that against lower level opponents, he's going to be able to get away with some of those flaws in his game that he wasn't able to get away with in the UFC. So against Vinny Magalhaes, Vinny as well, ADCC competitor, one of the best guys to do it, really. I mean, just an absolute fantastic submission grappler. But as far as his MMA career goes, he's always come up just a tad bit short. He's a finalist on The Ultimate Fighter against Ryan Bader. He gets knocked out in the first round. He draws a fight versus Anthony Parash, 42-year-old Anthony Parash, knocked down in 14 seconds. Cut from the UFC again. He finally gets back going. He's in the PFL. He's fighting for $1 million in the final, right? Had an easy walk to the finals. In the finals against Sean O'Connell, quits on a stool after the third round. Gasses out, takes a beating, quits. $1 million on the line. Sean O'Connell quits. Next time against Sordi, knocked out. So it's not going good at this point. This is the biggest key, though, right? Is that after he fights Rashid Yusupov, he gets knocked out first round. This is now the 5th time in his career he's been knocked out, 4 of which were in the first round. Some of these fights against non-heavy hitters, and it's really like the first glancing blow that hits him seems to just absolutely wobble him. But once he uses to Yusupov, once he loses that fight, he goes back to grappling. Now, it happens at Chael Sonnen's Submission Underground 13. He fights Craig Jones. Craig Jones, badass. Losing to him, certainly not an issue. But Vinny doesn't get submitted. Vinny doesn't get finished in submission grappling. The guy's very durable, near impossible to put away. And Craig Jones gets a hold of this leg lock and starts wrenching on it. And at first, Vinny's just defending. And, they're going through the motions. And then at one point, Craig looks at, during the course of the match, and he very clearly tells him, he's like, yo, your knee's torn, your knee's gone, it's not even there anymore. And Vinny very clearly says back to him, without tapping, by the way, like he's ass in on this heel hook still, he's like, I know, bro, it's fucked, that's just how it is. His knee's gone, it's not there anymore. He's been in all these submission attempts, and by the way, you look at the Meow brothers, they're the exact same way. Like, they're just in such beaten up shape from all these, like, they don't tap, these guys don't tap. So the ligaments get torn, the cartilage gets torn, and the longer you do it, you're banged up, man. He's got a gimp to him. He's certainly past that best version of himself. His knee just got completely decimated, and it's not like it just happened. He specifically just tells Craig Jones, that's how my knee is, and then proceeds to verbally tap a short time after. The ref's kind of disgusted. Jones is disgusted. Everyone's disgusted, and eventually he submits Vinny. And it's like, at that point, it's over for him. They do bring him back against Mason Fowler, who's a brown belt at the time. Fucking stud this kid is. But it was a brown belt at the time. and he beats Vinny in overtime by escape time. So his MMA career is ending in first round knockouts. His cardio is not particularly good. He does try to rely back on his submission grappling background, make a little bit of money doing some submission grappling, and it's apparent that his body is just not keeping up. So 37-year-old Vinny Magalhaes against 31-year-old Antonio Carlos Jr. If the fight ends up being grappler versus grappler, theoretically, Vinny's compete at a higher level. But at this stage, like I honestly don't think it matters. And as far as the stand-up goes, it's Carlos Jr.'s way. He's a better striker. He's going to have that big body kick. Any of these punches, even though he's not a power puncher, if any of these things glance clean especially, Vinny's going to topple over. And as far as cardio goes, Carlos Jr.'s kryptonite is taking him into deep waters. Who's going to take him into deep waters? Vinny? No, Vinny's cardio is no good at all. So again, Vinny, like, do I got it by, it's 255 Carlos Jr. I think that's extremely fair. I'm definitely playing it. But if I want to get filthy with it and chase a potential prop opportunity, I wouldn't know which one to attack. Does he submit Vinny? No, that's not going to happen. But does he knock out Vinny? Well, whereas he's not really a knockout guy against Vinny, it's always possible. Parash was actually a pure grappler as well. He was a black belt under Elvis Sinisic in Australia. Most notable for taking a fight on short notice in the UFC against Mir Krokop once upon a time and couldn't take him down. Like, it was not a good road for Anthony Parash. He just hit him once and he toppled him over. And that was a closer to prime version of Vinny than what you see before you now. So anything's live. Carlos Jr. could definitely finish this thing inside the distance. And for that reason, I think I'll just steer clear and only hit that money line, 255. Corey Hendricks versus Marthin Hamlet. This one's interesting. Again, if we were talking about potential live dogs, I would say that Corey Hendricks is one of them. But I really like what I see out of this Marthin Hamlet Nielson. I get enjoyment out of watching tickets cash. I get enjoyment out of watching a guy cruise and win an effortless fight. And I know we all want to see the firefight and we want to see, fireworks, and that's exciting too. But I like watching that on a different type of enjoyment purpose. Don't like having my money behind that. Brad Riddell versus Drew Dober. Could have just watched it on an entertainment standpoint and been thoroughly impressed. But I got money on Brad Riddell, and as a result, like, the entire thing's a sweat. Is it worth it in the end? Sure. But it makes it a sweat. What I love most is wrestlers. They don't make it a sweat. They just go in, they take the guy down, they control them. You got to be a high-level wrestler to have those walk-in-the-park wrestling performances. Very strong, good pedigree. And you need an opponent that's going to willingly accept being taken down. They're going to have trouble getting back up. They're going to start getting tired. They're going to start getting frustrated. They're going to accept position. That's what we need in a perfect situation. This Martin Nielson Hamlet, my God, he seems extremely strong. You look at him on the regional scene, he's taking guys down almost at will. He's not fighting the lowest level regional scene guys either. He's taking on a decent level of competition for a young fighter. Culminates in this Cage Warriors title fight against Modestas Bukauskas. Of course, we know Modestas now. He fights in the UFC. He was a former Cage Warriors world champion. European champion. It's not really a world title. It's a European title, but still, credible European title, wins that. And now he's cutting it in the world's premier mixed martial arts organization. But when you look back the fight with Marthin Hamlet, he's taking him down pretty good in those first opening rounds. The thing is that it's a 5-round championship fight. You've never been in championship rounds. He starts to get tired a little bit. And in the 4th round, he ends up getting TKO'd. But there's a lot of positives that you can take from him, especially if he was booked in a 3-round fight where he could just wrestle you down for 2 of the 3 rounds and survive. So coming in against Dan Spahn, and again, we already talked about Dan Spahn. Dan Spahn's kryptonite is takedown defense. It always has been. I believe it likely always will be. And so it's a picture-perfect matchup for Martin. He just goes out there, takes him down at will, and is eventually able to submit him from his guard. It's a power move. He's a strong guy physically. He does like the head and arm choke, which is another wrestling submission. But beyond that, if you can get the guy to the ground and hold him down, we're going to be able to secure some rounds and hopefully win the fight. Corey Hendricks, where he is live, is he's got a bunch of power, man. Like, sneaky good power. Was not a fan of this guy. I did not like him at all. He debuts on The Ultimate Fighter. He's 3-0. Don't like his personality. Don't like his style. He's extremely green. He's out of Las Vegas. That's probably why he's on the show. He draws Marcel Fortuna in the first round, fight to get in the house. And Fortuna's a BJJ black belt. Fortuna's fought in the UFC already. Fortuna's actually not a bad opponent. Hendricks wins. That's a pretty credible win for a 3-0 opponent. Now he's got Khalil Roundtree on the show. Him and Khalil are friends. They both train at Extreme Couture. And so Khalil kind of lets him off the hook a little bit in that fight. And as a result, Hendricks takes him down and submits him. It's a solid victory. Now all of a sudden, he's in the finals against Josh Stansbury. And he's a 2-1 favorite to win the Ultimate Fighter over Josh Stansbury. Loses to Stansbury. UFC is so disgusted they cut him. But this is where that sneaky power comes in, because at this point, he's got no striking. He's got very little grappling. He does submit Roundtree, I suppose. His cardio looked good. He has good heart. He's definitely got the heart of a fighter. He doesn't look all that good. It's when he gets cut from the UFC, he ends up in Russia as a feeder opponent, and he shines. First fight against Evgeny Egamberdiev, right? The guy's 7-0 and a power puncher, man. This guy hits hard. You don't want to mess around. It's like Hendricks goes out there. He cold cocks him in the first round, knocks him out minute 43. The next fight against Konstantin Rokin's a heavyweight. He's a big boy too. And again, a guy that was supposed to be a factor in at some higher promotions, but he goes out there and he head kicks him 30 seconds into the first round. The whole run's tough, guys. Alexei Buterin beats him, but Buterin's a top guy. Luke Barnett, UFC veteran, he submits Luke Barnett. This Nasruddinov, my God, guy's a problem. Undefeated Russian. It's a majority decision loss for Hendricks, but he's competitive in there with him. He's competitive in there with a lot of these guys, and he does got some solid power. And then his last fight against Carlos Eduardo goes, gets the decision, puts him back in the win column, solid. He's 33. He's getting up there. This is really his last run. He's been fighting in Russia and not getting a whole lot of exposure. UFC gave him a one and done. That North American exposure has kind of not been there for him, but he's a dangerous opponent. And so again, if I'm trying to think of underdogs with a chance, I want to bet Nielson. I'm sure I probably will be stupid enough and I will bet Nielson. But again, if I'm trying to identify one of these favorites that's going to blow it for me, well, who's the opponent that's got the most chance? And again, with Hendricks, he's going to get taken down in this first round against Nielson. But Nielson showed in the Modestas fight that if you can extend him, make him work, and tire him out, then that's when you're going to be able to catch him with strikes. And with Hendricks, again, he's still at Extreme Couture. He's training with a bunch of guys, not only on this card, but are on the upcoming UFC card that are on, everybody. Dan Ige headlining the Saturday show, right? Like, there's a vibe right now. He's going to be in good shape. He comes out here and he just makes, Martin works that first round, tire him out a little bit. In the second or third, he's got the power advantage. And like Modestas, theoretically, he could catch him. So looking at the line, it's not like he's a huge underdog by any stretch. But, he is. Well, money must have really came in on Hamlet then. Yeah, Hamlet opens at minus 185, and he's currently sitting at 325. At 185, we're going with Hamlet. We're going with that wrestling. But at 325 or 3-1 favorite over Corey Hendricks now, one has to wonder. Corey Hendricks just needs to get out of that first round, make him work, tire him a little bit. He does have the power. He does train with powerhouse wrestlers on the day-to-day basis. He would be considered a live underdog, but I was really impressed with Hamlet's first fight. I'll bite it was against Dan Spahn, so take that into consideration. Jones Zeferino versus Jason Pone. Again, this is a line that's going to run huge in the favor of Zeferino. He opens at minus 300. And now, depending on the book that you're using, you can get him at 470 to minus 600. And again, it's pretty rightfully so. He took his last fight against Tibau on short notice, came out there and looked pretty good. But yeah, at his best, Joe Zeferino's got a lot of skills. He is getting a little bit older. He's 35 years old, but he's a Renzo Gracie BJJ black belt out of Jersey. And the guy is pretty solid all around, good durability, decent striking, okay cardio, good ground game, gets on top of you, going to be a problem. He's, again, at times he shows up not in great shape and he doesn't have the gas to push through. But if he does show up in good shape, he's good to go. Him versus Tibau was an indicator that him on short notice, cardio wasn't going to be there, but it was a kind of a low output fight, and he did exactly what he had to do to secure the victory. That extends his winning streak to 4 straight. The other wins being Bojan Velakovic, UFC veteran, solid all-around talent. Yuri Velfort, awful, but he's actually a UFC veteran, a Strikeforce veteran. Paul Bradley, UFC veteran, guy that wrestled at the University of Iowa, was pretty solid wrestler. Herman Torado, you shouldn't lose to Herman, but Herman, my boy, so that one was huge, and it's a split decision. Knocks out Jason High. It's all high-level stuff. It's all good stuff. Even at 35, he's just got to fight the right game plan, doesn't overexert himself, doesn't take any unnecessary risks, and he should be fine. Against Jason Pone is extremely one-dimensional. I mean, we know that he's a striker out of France by way of Thailand. And yeah, is he dangerous as far as his stand-up goes? Definitely is dangerous. But he spent a lot of time fighting lower-level regional scene guys where he can either defeat them with the striking or they take him down, they out-grapple him. He's never really had to test himself at an over-elite level. When you do look at his record, it's okay. He's got 11 losses. But let's just look at a recent history thing, right? His last loss, Ray Cooper, sure. Ray Cooper takes him down effortlessly, submits him effortlessly. That in itself is going to be a serious problem moving forward because Ray Cooper's not bad, but you were non-competitive with him at all. And we knew it was going to be your grappling that let you down, and sure enough, it was. The wins, he's got a split decision to win over a 7-2 opponent before that. He's got a win over 3-2 opponent and a win over a 13-8 opponent. Those are your lower level regional scene guys. Those are the guys he stands with. Those are the guys he beats. Joel Luderbach, well, we know him from the PFL tournament, almost screwed us big time on that Clay Collard fight. He loses that fight. Chris Fishgold, you know him, right? He's in the UFC. Well, he loses that fight. Piotr Hallman, I remember him. He was in the UFC. Yeah, no, he loses that fight. Juho Valama, right? He's a Finnish standout. Never really made it to a notable organization, but good guy in the Finnish original scene. Yeah, no, he loses that fight. He's beaten a lot of guys that you've never heard of. A couple, actually. David Barron. David Barron was a UFC veteran once upon a time. And he beat Tommy Hayden, 0-2 UFC veteran. Louis Monarch was undefeated at the time. He's not a bad fighter, but you've got to fight to his ability. You got to stand with him and allow him to use that finesse striking. If you don't allow him to do that, if you make this gritty and grindy and take him down, that is certainly the way the blueprint has been written. A lot of guys have followed it. So again, looking at this fight with Joe Zeferino is a black belt under Renzo Gracie, has some good wrestling, has beaten better guys than this. Even Herman Torado is an absolute shit tank of a man, like very strong. And again, BJJ black belt. Those guys are going to be able to grind with you. Those guys are being able to fight back. Brian Foster, John Fitch, those are going to be able to match what you're bringing to them. But against Pone, I really don't think so. So in terms of could this big favorite screw it up for us? Again, any big favorite could screw it up for us, but how does he screw it up? Yeah, it's MMA, get caught. But really, he'd have to struggle on the takedowns, and Pone would just have to show career best takedown defense. And not only that, but not let up, stay on him. I just don't really see any of that coming together. So gonna have to go with Zeferino. Do I feel as good about that one as the other big favorites that we're locking in? Not quite as much, but again, he's the rightful favorite. I would have loved it a lot more at the minus 300 opener, but we're losing value by the minute on that one. Moving on, Magomed Karimov versus Curtis Millender. Again, there's no value that could be had here. If anything, I don't even know that you want to bet it, because Magomed Karimov could slip and blow out his knee. At minus 1,200, it's not really adding anything to our parlays. It's just an inverted risk. And the one thing, this guy looks like a total badass, and he is a total badass, don't get me wrong, 27-5, 31 years old, so he's not over the hill. He's got an extremely good record, and he is on one hell of a killer run right now. But if the only one cause for concern, which is why 1,200 is just not quite worth it, is he beats John Howard, huge win. Ray Cooper, John Howard beats Chris Curtis. Now we're getting ready for the $1 million. So he fights Chris Curtis again, beats Chris Curtis. Perfect. 2 back-to-back victories over him. Solid, both by decision. Now it's a one-night tournament. Now he needs to fight Ray Cooper. Well, he just took down Chris Curtis a bunch of times. One, I wouldn't say effortlessly, but wins. Now you need to fight Ray Cooper, and the winner of that gets to fight for $1 million. And he pulls out of the second fight, not with an injury, with an illness. He got sick. He somehow got sick in between wrestling Chris Curtis for 15 minutes and having to fight. And there's $1 million at stake here, man. So I'm not going to say bitch move. Come on. This guy's a pro fighter and a badass. Totally badass. But what was the illness? I don't know. So anyways, he pulls out of that fight. So now we got a new tournament, right? New $1 million up on the line. You bailed out of the last one, kid, but don't worry. Come back in this one. You're going to be one of the tournament favorites. You're going to walk through these guys, and we'll give you Joe Zeferino in the opening fight, right? And he pulls out. And that fight's 5 weeks ago. He pulls out. So he never fought the first round of this tournament, therefore left any points available on the table. And now he's coming back for round 2. Now, he needs a first-round finish, gives him 6 points, and he's probably going to get a first-round finish over Curtis Millender. But those are my red flags. At 12-1, I don't want to overthink anything. And at 12-1, what I'm thinking is, why pull out of a second fight of the night, not with an injury, with an illness? Because someone got sick. His body's rejecting something. And then 5 weeks ago, now you're fighting, you give up 2 opportunities for $1 million? Just seems sketchy to me. But straight up, Curtis Millender can't stop a takedown to save his life, quite literally. It's bad news, man. He wrestled in high school, and that must be as far as it goes. I know in training camp he works on his wrestling, but quite literally every single fight he's ever lost. Brendan Ward, Fernando Gonzalez, Eddie Mendez, Zaleski dos Santos, Bilal Muhammad, all with the wrestling. I give him a pass. Zaleski's badass. Bilal Muhammad's been making it work for him, and let's give him a pass. When Sabah Hamasi took him down at will and grinded him into oblivion, that was a no more Curtis Millender, my friend. You will never bet this man again. Could he land a strike? It's MMA. anybody could land something. You could knock the guy out. I get that. I get that. We've seen crazier things happen before, but you need to be well-rounded. He's giving up takedowns to everybody and their mother. So now he's fighting Rory. Well, what do you realistically think is going to happen? Now, the narrative on Rory, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, sometimes he just doesn't show up. Kind of like a 50-50 guy. Mentally, he's a weird guy, and like sometimes he's on and he's motivated, and sometimes he's like, he said this, I'm not making this up. Oh, Jesus was in there tonight telling me to take it easy on the guy. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like that movie Bad to the Bone with Woody Harrelson, Antonio Banderas, where it's like Woody's just been hit so many times, he sees Jesus periodically in the ring with him. So Oliver McCall, same thing. He cried against Lennox Lewis. It's like he was Paulo Filho, Chael's son, and who's he talking to? He says Jesus, right? Those are all massive warning signals. Like, what the hell? Rory, you know, if he pulls it together, he's fine. Against Curtis Millender, the question is Rory going to pull it together? But the question was, if Rory pulls it together, it'll look like one single takedown. That's all he needs. The takedown should come at will. Rory's not even the elite of the elite wrestlers, but against Curtis Millender, you know, if he wants him down, he's going to get him down. It's when the fight hit the ground. Millender's been a decent at surviving, so to speak. Again, you look at the Sabah Hamasi fight, it's a decision. You look at the Bilal Muhammad fight, it's a decision. Those guys are kind of more decision guys. Zaleski Santos did submit him, but for the most part, when he gets taken down, he's able to survive. Against Rory, it was like there was no surviving. He got taken down, he got passed, he got submitted. It wasn't a particularly good look. And when I think about Magomed Karimov, it's like it's the same thing. The takedowns will be at will, but beyond that, he'll fish out your neck at some point and likely submit you. Even if his body shuts down and he did have some illness, he styled on Chris Curtis for 15 minutes before that. If he's styling on Chris Curtis, what do you think he's going to do to Curtis Millender? This guy is a top talent. He's a scary guy. But if there was a greasy theory to be had, would be like, you know, the Russian mob would stand to fading a 12-1 favorite, you know, like who knows? All jokes aside, no one's throwing a fight. I'm just saying it'd be so tempting if you're a 12-1 favorite. Am I wrong? Moving on. No throwing going on here. We got Jordan Young, Tom Lawler. A couple of people have mentioned they think Tom Lawler is a live underdog on Thursday in the PFL show. It's not that he's not a live underdog. Again, I think you could make somewhat of a case for everybody. It's that like it's irresponsible to back Tom Lawler at this stage of his career, as it's irresponsible to back a lot of these guys that are mentally checked out. He's 38 years old. He's a natural middleweight that's now campaigning at 205 pounds. He's been just riddled with injuries the last number of years. He left professional fighting to pursue professional wrestling for a number of years, and that downtime was because he had a positive USADA test. So, you know, was he on the gear? And those were the last stage of his athletic career. He's fighting in the UFC. He needs something to fill in that gap. Now all of a sudden, test positive. They release you. You get a 2-year-long suspension. What's the upside? So he goes to pro wrestling because he's got a character. He's got a personality. Who doesn't like Tom Lawler? First UFC I ever attended is Tom Lawler fought Joe Dirksen, and that's when he showed up dressed up like Dan Severn at the weigh-ins. You know, he shows up to like Apollo Creed at the walkout. It was crazy shit. Who doesn't like Tom Lawler? He's a fan favorite. On The Ultimate Fighter, knocks out Dave Kaplan, one of the most viral videos in tough history. He's cool. He's got a name. But that's about as far as it goes beyond that. So realistically, you know, we got to look at recent history. The fight with Corey Anderson is 2016. That's 5 years ago. That's not recent history. But there you do see Corey's a better athlete, a better wrestler. He's able to have his way, defeat Tom Lawler fair. Then he gets the suspension. So now 2 years later, he shows up to fight Deron Wynn on the undercard of Tito versus Chuck Liddell 3. Why did I pay money for that? Gleison Tibau was actually also on that card. Funny how things come full circle for these guys. Now, he's paid $25,000, comes in as a sizable underdog, and he weighs in for a 205-pound fight at 199 pounds. He's not actually a 205er. He is a middleweight. And Deron Wynn didn't even wrestle him, man. Deron Wynn quite literally boxed him up for 15 minutes. Deron Wynn, 5'8", you know, not in this weight class. Not a good striker. Absolutely boxed up Tom Lawler. Knock him out, but Deron Wynn can't knock anybody out, so that's fair. But it's like that right then and there you knew his days at an elite level were gone. Even though Deron was supposed to be a good prospect, so you can give him a pass. He's a lot older at this point. He relied on his wrestling back when he was in his prime. You know, he's a guy that did wrestle in college, had that grind to him, but it's gone. His durability not quite there anymore. He's not as strong as he used to be. Now that he's campaigning up a weight class, it's just not coming together. I was shocked to see him in the PFL tournament. But again, that comes back to the fact that he's got a name. He's Tom Lawler. He's Filthy Tom. You know, Joe Lozon coined that name on him because he dropped an Egg McMuffin on like a dirty floor, picked it up, and like if you've ever seen an Egg McMuffin hit the ground, everything sticks to it, man. I don't know why. It's like that disc, that egg puck that they put on there. Everything sticks to it. Anyways, he eats it, and he's Filthy Tom. He makes a great reputation. He's on top. He's got the walkouts. He's dancing in the ring. He's got the mustache. He's a personable guy. You know, that's why he's on the undercard of Tito versus Chuck 3, because hey, we need a little carrot to dangle on the prelims, and Tom's got a name. In this PFL tournament, you guys are fighting for $1 million. It's the best guys, elite guys, you know, elite guys outside of the UFC and Bellator. But like Tom's not even at that. Like I don't. You should win some fights before you get an opportunity to start fighting for prizes like this and tournaments like this. And sure enough, he gets matched up with Antonio Carlos Jr. in the first round. And, you know, people like to try to fade Antonio Carlos Jr. But again, same thing I'm saying here is like, this is not the spot to fade the guy because it's Tom Lawler. And he's non-competitive. You know, he goes out there, he gets taken down, he gets submitted. That guillotine choke, like, it was just money. You know, he drops in onto it. Tom immediately flips over. Now you've got a mounted guillotine position, and he taps out soon thereafter. He's dead to rights in that spot. His grappling is going to be a serious problem against any of these elite level guys. His wrestling is not the same as it used to be. His striking, you know, I mean, he's got a willingness to get in there, but his chin's not as good as it used to be again. And the fact that Deron Winn boxed him up, like, I don't know. Spending all that time working on your body slam and your suplex and, you know, cutting a sweet promo, like that's all well and good. But like, you're not punching, you're not kicking, you're not sparring, you're not grinding, you're not doing anything that, you know, constitute being an MMA fighter. And then when you come in against Antonio Carlos Jr. and you make him look like an absolute world beater, it's a problem. So now you draw Jordan Young, and honestly, this is probably the lower level guy in the tournament that if Tom was going to be competitive against a guy, it would likely be Jordan Young. There's just a little bit more to like in Jordan Young. I mean, first of all, he's 6'4" at this weight class with a 76.5-inch reach. He's a big boy. He is actually the 205-pound fighter. He's out of American Top Team, Coconut Creek, Florida. He's only 26 years old. He is definitely making a lot of improvements. And you know what? They didn't give this guy an easy road out. He signs to Bellator at 5-0. Now, mind you, he had already beaten Cameron Olsen and Yakis Williams prior to that, so beating good regional scene guys before signing with with Bellator. Beats Chris Harris, not Chris Harrison, Catch a Predator. Beats Chris Harris, who was undefeated at the time. Strong, thick guy, not elite level by no stretch, but solid test, man. Beats him. Tim Karen, also undefeated, beats him. Alex Hubin, Jamal Pogues, Anthony Ruiz, my boy, a.k.a. 60 Pro Fights. He just walks through all these guys. He does got a good submission game. The thing is that he's not super comfortable in his feet. I don't mean comfortable in like he's antsy or anything. He's super relaxed. In fact, maybe a little too relaxed, but his striking is a work in progress. It's a little bit herky-jerky. It's a little bit robotic. It's a little bit telegraphed. His wrestling is not actually all that good. And as far as his jiu-jitsu goes, it's good when he's taking on Alex Hubin. It's good when he's taking on Jamal Pogues. This Joel Bowman fight, watch that. I mean, he gets outstruck early, and then Bowman ends up on top of him. He throws up the triangle and catches him. It looks like he's ripe for the take, and somebody's going to take him. And then he draws Julius Iglikas, who is a beast. Like, again, another guy that wrestled collegiately out of Illinois, and is just in phenomenal physical shape. Striking's coming a long way. He's going to be a factor in the Bellator 205-pound division, but they have their own tournament going on, and Iglikas is, you know, going to be solid in that tournament. Won his first-round fight. But how do you go from losing to Iglikas? You take a year and a half off, right? And now you're in PFL. Now you've had he lost to Iglikas. He's 24. Now he comes back. He's 26. That time, that maturity, that's going to help him. Being an ATT, that's going to help him. A winnable fight guy in Tom Lawler, that's all going to help. But important to note, first round of the tournament, he draws Vinny Magalhaes, and he's pumped up. Vinny's not going to take me now. Vinny's not going to submit me. I'm pumped up about this fight. Then Vinny pulls out. So they give him Askar Mazarov. Cool. I don't know him, but I'm going to take him on anyways. Good attitude about that one. Mazarov pulls out. So they give him Smiliano Rama. Okay, man, shit, kid's game. Rama pulls out. He had 3 opponents pull out, so he did not fight in the first round of the tournament. They gave him his show money and his win money and 3 points in the tournament. So dude's sitting pretty, right? He's got 3 points, even though he did not have to fight, and he got his show and win money. And so he's on record saying that was huge for him because he hadn't fought since the Iglikas fight. And he's like, if I can just focus, if I had a little bit of money and I could just focus and train full time all the time at the camp I'm at, ATT, with the guys I'm with, I'm telling you, I'm gonna be a special talent. I don't know if he's gonna be a special talent, but he thinks he's gonna be special. I think he could be good enough. But getting that show money and that win money, he's like, yeah, that's been huge for me. So again, what improvements are you going to make in the 5 weeks or something since that last training camp, so to speak? I don't know. But how many improvements did he make in the 18 months since he fought Julius? Probably a lot, and enough to beat Tom Lawler. So as far as the striking goes, Lawler, I guess you could make an argument that he's going to be a comparable striker, but he's not, because he's going to be dealing with a guy 6'4" with a much longer reach that's going to routinely beat him to the punch. So now Tom can close up the distance and actually potentially take down Young. But Young's going to have the grappling advantage. If he's off his back, he's going to fish for submissions. He's going to fish for sweeps. And if for whatever reason he gets a hold of Lawler and ends up on top of him, this is all she wrote. So I'm going to have to agree with the assessment on Jordan Young. They got him as a -360 favorite. I agree. But we're not betting Jordan Young because we like Jordan Young. We are absolutely just fading Tom Lawler. And that in times can be risky. To blind fade a guy. But I don't think we're coming in blind. I think we've mapped it out. I think we know exactly who both guys are. And Tom at 38, like, again, I just don't think he should be in this position. And then wrapping things up, we got Kanchenko versus Busai. This is going to be a fun fight. This is going to be a fun fight. And again, this one's hard to get a solid read on, being that Kanchenko was supposed to be a world beater, man. He was 18-0. He was the M1 champion. The UFC signed him to like some pretty heavy fanfare. It's like, this guy's a banger. He knocks guys out. He looks awesome. Debuts against Thiago Alves. The UFC knows what they're doing. We got an undefeated, scary-looking Russian power puncher, M1 champion, a little bit older when they signed him. But still, if he beats Thiago Alves, a fan favorite, recognizable name, a very soft fight at this stage in his career, I mean, that's going to shoot up Kanchenko. Kanchenko wins, but he got outstruck by Thiago Alves in that fight and did not look good. So they give him Yushin Okami. You know, we got a former title challenger, fought Anderson Silva twice, actually won in the Hawaiian regional scenes way back in the day on a DQ win. But again, Okami's been there, done that. He fought Chael Sonnen. He's fought in a lot of recognizable guys. He has a name. Kanchenko goes out, he beats him, but it didn't really look good. Both decision victories. And then they move him up. You know, he's making money. He doesn't appear to be all that entertaining. He's got to fight for it. Give him Gilbert Burns. He gets outstruck and taken down. They give him Zaleski dos Santos. He gets outstruck and taken down. He doesn't look particularly good. Now he's effectively not fought for 15 months. He's coming in here as a 37-year-old. I would say that his best days were on the Russian regional scene back in 2018, 2017 even. He's just not the guy he used to be. He does have heavy hands, but his last 4 fights have all gone to decision, and he's so tentative. Like, outside of the Yushin Okami fight, I mean, he's low output in almost all these fights. He gets outstruck in almost all. Actually, he does. In the other 3 fights, he gets outstruck in all of them. And in the later 2, he gives up the takedowns as well. But he just doesn't look like he's quite himself. So now you give him a 15-month layoff. At his age, I don't think he's getting any better. He should have a little bit of ring rust. But again, this is a guy booked to fight in the first round of the tournament against Gleison Tibau, and he pulls out. So, like, there's a number of these guys. They pulled out 5 weeks ago with an injury of some type, and now 5 weeks later, they're good to go. Like, I just don't fully buy it. I'd buy it if you had like a massive skill advantage. Like Magomed Karimov, that's what he did. He pulled out of a fight 5 weeks ago, but like, shit, man, the way he matches up with Chris Millender is just too good to be true. This is a spot where it's like, no, man, Kanchenko is a primary striker and he's low output, right? When you look at Busai, he's tricky. He's lengthy. He himself is a primary striker. And you know what? He's got better volume. He's got a little better output. He's a little longer. He's a sharp guy. The one thing I can see going wrong for us is that Kanchenko might mix in the wrestling. And Busai's takedown defense is just so-so. But again, he's so tall. He's able to keep his balance a lot of the time that if he does stay standing, he gets going. And notably enough, from his fight with the Lexicon his last time out, he says in the post-fight interview, he's like, I got off to a slow start in the first round because I hadn't fought in over a year. Again, a lot of these PFL guys hadn't fought because of the pandemic. He's like, and in the second round, I felt myself getting better. Like, I felt that I was doing everything that we talked about in the gym. I felt that the fight was starting to pull my way and I get poked in the eye. But really all he was feeling was that he was shaking off the ring rust. So now he comes into this spot. Again, did get a no contest, did get a premature finish, stoppage, I guess, his last time out, no contest, do the eye poke, but at least did get to make the ring walk, did make the weight, did go down there, did get to fight for 7.5 minutes, did get to feel the exchanges a little bit. If he comes out here and he gets a bit of a quicker start on Kanchenko, again, Kanchenko just doesn't have the volume. He could theoretically, depending on who those judges are, persuade them with a little bit better output. He did the same thing against Ray Cooper, got taken out in the first, but worked his way back into it in the second, and that's why he sells for the draw there. At his best, he is a tricky fighter. And again, if I want to give him a pass on one thing, his losses are to Gleiko Fraka, the Ultimate Fighter winner, who's a BJJ black belt and a tough guy. Abu Supian Magomedov, like he wasn't gonna out-grapple him. Let's be real here. Bruno Santos has to go. Like PFL cut him, UFC cut him. Everybody that has him cuts him because he is a problem. He wins, and he is the most boring fighter you have ever seen in your entire life. He actually filled out a UFC questionnaire back in the day, and they said, "Who's your favorite fighter?" And this guy, Brazilian, Bruno Santos, you know what he said? He said John Fitch. Why he said John Fitch to this day, I'll never understand. But when you see him fight, he fits like Brazilian John Fitch. Like, he doesn't give a shit if you boo, he just holds on to you. Those guys are the guys that have had success with Sadibou Busai because they can take him down and they can control him. But with Kanchenko, you just haven't seen enough of his wrestling game to him. So if this figures to be striker versus striker, Sadibou's going to have the length, the reach, a little bit better output. He's fought a lot more recently. He's the younger man. I could see it all playing out to a potential Sadibou greaser. And considering I've cowered it out and taken all the favorites, Sadibou Busai plus 150. Okay, I need one underdog. That'll be said underdog. So again, I'm going to have to tweet the stuff out tomorrow. But before the line jumps out, if I'm looking at it, we want Rory on our top ticket, right? We got that enough. We got to have some Rory, right? Looking on it beyond that, who are the big favorites that we really key and that we really like? So Zeferino should be one of them. Magomed Karimov should be one of them. And that in itself gives you a minus 216. Not quite good enough. We're going to force one more on there. The options are Sordi, who I like. Ferreira, we're going to knock down a little bit. We're going to go Antonio Carlos Jr. on that ticket. That's a plus 104. Dropping down one, we're going to put Jordan Young. That gives us 160. And we're going to add Emiliano Sordi. That gives us plus 233. So at this point, we've got 6 guys. We need those 6 guys to win. Those are going to be our 6 guys that we're keying in, so to speak. And Paul Shaughnessy and I spoke about this earlier today. The chances of 6 guys winning, listen, it's only paying plus 233. There's a lot of inverted risk. So who's going to be the guy to screw it up? I don't know. Those are the guys that I think like it. Beyond that, I could see some apple pie shitters coming into play. But it looks like props are coming out too. So we'll have a look at the props. Maybe I can tweet something in on that side of things. As far as the parlay goes, we know our key 3. We know our key 6. 6 is getting a little bit long. And then the degenerate side of things come out. And we're going for it. We're going to probably take a Lexicon. I'm tempted on Hendricks, but I don't think I will. We'll take Hamlet. Jordan Young, obviously. And then Sadibou Busai. And then again, if a PRP hits, we're looking at a 20-1 score on that. With PFL, you'll notice a lot of favorites do normally hit, and there's always that one shock, 1 or 2 shock underdogs that come through. Bellator, kind of similar. So on this one, again, is there going to be 1 or 2 shock ones come through? Sure. But there's a clear narrative. There's a clear favorite. There's a clear A side and B side. And the tournament's designed for certain guys to go forward and some guys to just plug roster spots and fill in some fights. A lot of these guys are not even like the first choice in the tournament. They're replacing somebody that was in the tournament. So all that needs to be factored in. And at the end of the day, we got a very chalk card. So bear it in mind. Best way to attack it probably is take the ones that you like personally, whether it be Rory, whether it be Zeferino, whether it be, Antonio Carlos Jr. Take the ones that you personally feel best about, match them up with some of your UFC plays that you like best. Because the UFC card's another one that's difficult to parlay. But if we take the 2 or 3 plays that we like most on UFC and can match them up with the 3 or 4 plays we like most on PFL, now we can hit a +3, +4-1 ticket on some guys we feel good about. So that's where I'll leave you at this one. Going to be another fun card as it usually is with PFL. And hopefully those big upsets are not only the guys that we got keyed on at the top. So until the next time, thank you very much for joining us. And good luck to anything. If you got questions or concerns, hit me up in the comments, hit me up on Twitter, whatever you want.